Chris Trapasso with us, draftgradebook.com. Bulldog and I were talking how we wanted to get going with you today, and I liked his idea, which was let's talk about the top 10 or even just the top 5. I mean, how solid is it right now in your opinion?
I think it's reasonably solid, but there's just not a lot of buzz about it because these prospects are not these blue chippers that we normally see. I mean, Mendoza's going to go 1. I think number 2 to the Jets is probably Arvell Reese. I think they would be making a mistake picking him over David Bailey. Bailey's older and maybe doesn't have as much upside, but is a much more polished player and just was more productive in a defined edge rusher role. Arizona at 3, I think, is a little bit of a wild card, but it does feel like the other Ohio State linebacker, Sonny Styles, feels like the guy that is mostly mocked there. I'm sure you guys have looked at more mocks than I have. I'm trying to stay away from mock drafts this year because I did 1,000 of them the last 10 years at CBS.
Do you miss it?
No, not one bit.
Interesting.
Tennessee, Jeremiah Love, and then the Giants. I'm not totally sure where they would ultimately land with Jim Harbaugh. They probably want offensive line to help Jackson Dart. So I think it's reasonably solidified. There's just, again, kind of sort of like last year, but even to a greater degree, there's just not the buzz because the talent is not where it normally is inside that top 5.
How do you like that, Bulldog? All these years talking to Chris, year after
new
year,
mock
week
draft
after
just
week,
dropped.
new mock draft. Behind the music, he hated it.
I mean, I didn't hate talking about it, but doing one per week from September through April, would by the time that I should be getting excited about it in that time period, I was sick of them. You know what I mean? By March or April, I had done like 40 of them.
Sure, makes sense. Well, I mean, Arvell Reese at 2. There's also Sonny Styles, who you mentioned. 2 linebackers from Ohio State could end up being both in the top 3, I guess.
They could, yeah.
And
totally.
then,
and I think with Reese, just very quickly with Reese, there's a lot of the comparisons to Micah Parsons because he was off-ball linebacker that rushed off the edge, and the production, if you're just looking at pressures and pressure rate, you're like, oh, wow, he was like Micah Parsons 2.0. When you watch the film, Micah Parsons, I remember writing a few times in my scouting reports, like this guy can beat offensive linemen with pass rush moves, with a bull rush, with 50 different ways. Arvell Reese was getting a lot of those pressures on stunts or on like blitzes when he had a free run at the quarterback. He is not, to me, the level of pass rushing prospect that Micah Parsons is, but he's young, Ohio State, certainly versatile and tested through the roof. So, yeah, I think it's a reasonable possibility that 2 of the first 3 picks are from Ohio State.
How valuable is a non-edge rushing linebacker, like a regular linebacker, like a Terrell Bernard, or Jack Campbell is a good example because that was a first-round pick with Detroit the same year they took Gibbs, right? Is there – I think the Bills might be in the market for that at some point. I mean, I don't know that you got to do it at 26. You tell us. But is there somebody that plays like that is going to be picked really high? Is there like a hot shot, can't miss interior type linebacker?
To me, there's not. I think, I really like Caleb Alarms Orr from TCU, who's not a big buzzed about name. He reminds me so much of Quincy Williams, who the Bills certainly know well from his time with the Jets. Just that hair on fire, explosive linebacker, good in coverage, reliable tackler. It feels like the buzz for him is more day 2 than in the first round. But if a team picked him in the first round, like if the Bills, for as much as we've talked edge and certainly wide receiver, if the Bills picked him and just said, hey, we're plugging him in at one of the off-ball linebacker spots, I would be fine with it. Other than that, the other name would probably be C.J. Allen, who would get tossed around and you've probably seen in some mocks to the Bills. He's younger but experienced. He has the pedigree coming from Georgia. I think he is can be a really good player in time. I just hesitate, and probably why we don't see part of the reason why we don't see a lot of off-ball linebackers go in the first round. They're so green in coverage. Like, it is very rare to see someone that is ready to be a 3-down player and not get exploited in coverage. I think of some other first-round linebackers, Jordan Brooks, Kenneth Murray, that were first-round picks. Rashaan Evans from Alabama. First-rounders, all picked somewhere in that 20 to 32 range, looked the part, were sculpted, tested really well, tons of tackles, 100-plus tackles, but they all have not been very good in the NFL, especially relative to where they were picked because they're not great in coverage. So Allen, I think, showed some signs, and he's reasonably athletic, and he's a great tackler. He's not going to miss a lot in terms of the reading the play. But those two, to me, are the most interesting in terms of off-ball linebackers. And lastly, I don't think we see a lot of linebackers go in the first round because, and I don't know if we talked about this yet, the discrepancy, like the surplus value that you get from having a first-round player at edge, certainly quarterback, or wide receiver is huge. The top of the market is now, at wide receiver, $42 million a year. Linebacker, Fred Warner is the highest paid linebacker in terms of average per year at only $21 million per year. So I do think that does factor in, maybe more from the numbers side and the financial people talking to the GMs like, hey, if you draft this guy and he's good, you're not getting that much surplus value relative to, the last 3 years, what the Seahawks got value-wise for JSN before they had to give him that big extension.
Interesting. Good. The name Kenneth Murray rings a bell, and red lights flash for me. Not that I'm not the Greg Cosell of linebacker intel, but I know he was a pretty hot item when the Chargers drafted him in the first round, and he's on his third team at least. Still pretty young. The last two players, Chris, I've seen mocked to the Bills are both named Emmanuel, but they're different players. Emmanuel McNeil Warren seems to be trending up, a safety out of Toledo. And I could buy that the Bills would spend pick 26 on a safety. And then Emmanuel Pregnon, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, a guard from Oregon. That'd be fun to talk about. So do you have takes on these two Emmanuels?
Yeah, so Emmanuel McNeil Warren, I feel like we talked about him early in the process here before the Bills signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, obviously Geno Stone to kind of be the setting the floor at in the safety room. McNeil Warren, I have him comped to a skinnier version of Jeremy Chin, who was I remember wanting the Bills to draft him in 2020. He's been kind of rumored over the last couple of years in free agency. He's been a really good player and is that Nick Manwari of the MAC the last couple of seasons where he can be you're technically in nickel or in dime all the time, but it doesn't matter because he's big. He's 6 foot, over 200 pounds, or 6'3", over 200 pounds, freaky athlete, and made so many splash plays at Toledo. Now it was the MAC, so I think that's probably why he could and probably will still be there. Very, very interesting player. And then with Pregnon, he's actually my number one interior offensive lineman. I know the Vega Awani from Penn State. I know we probably haven't talked guards much. He's like the consensus top guard, but to me, Pregnon is awesome in that he is more athletic than Awani is. He has a little bit more length to his game, and I think he's just a better run blocker and pass protector right now. I think with Awani in time, a lot of the other people that I've talked to in the industry are like, oh, he could be like a Quentin Nelson in time. He's really big and strong and wide. But Pregnon, I wouldn't say that's a huge need. But if they don't feel like, hey, we're just going to roll the dice with Austin Corbett and with Alec Anderson at that left guard spot that's vacated by David Edwards, then if he's just the best guy available and they can't find a trade down partner because no one wants to trade up, Pregnon might just be like the best player on the board and would really he is a pro-ready blocker. When you watch his film at Oregon, really, really clean.
One thing that I think would create a need if you made a trade, Osiris Torrance is going into year 4. He's eligible for an extension now. And that probably is significant, whether it's top of the market or not, if he gets to free agency, or even if you wanted to try to head him off. I don't know how near the top, maybe you can give us some opinion about whether you would invest in Osiris Torrance. But if the Bills don't like the price tag of that, if you could do all right moving him, if there were a market for him, then I think I would maybe listen to drafting a guard at 26.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it's important, especially as we're starting draft month, to think about and lay out all the potential possibilities, because that certainly is one that I think at this point Torrance has played well enough to maybe earn consideration for an extension, but I don't think he's really improved from his rookie season.
Right.
That in and of itself, the rookie year in 23 was like, okay, build from here. The last 2 seasons, I haven't seen someone that's gotten significantly better. So, no, I don't think it would be close to a top-of-market deal, and we do obviously know that Brandon Beane likes to get these extensions done relatively early before those players can hit the market. And a lot of the guys like the Terrell Bernards and Christian Benfords and even Greg Rousseau, like it seems to be like there's a reasonable understanding with Beane and a lot of these players and their agents. Like, look, you're a good player. You could test and try to get top 5 money, but you can also just have the job security now a year early before an injury. So I think keeping someone like Osiris Torrance is probably not the worst idea. But do I think the Bills should even approach like top 10 money at the guard position? Not necessarily. Now, again, maybe that possibility presents itself where all the receivers are gone, the edge rushers aren't there, you can't trade back, and you just say, look, we're going to draft the best available player. That offensive line, and talk about shelf life. It's the opposite of running backs. You can have that guy on your roster like the Bills have seen with like a Deion Dawkins for like 10 years. And I really think that Pregnon can be good right now, and there's room for him to get better, even though he is a little bit of an older prospect. So I think that is something that maybe is kind of in the back of the Bills' minds going into draft weekend, because I think it's not really flashy. It's a very, very good interior offensive line class, both at center and at guard.
Chris Trapasso, draftgradebook.com. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Chris joins us Wednesdays leading up to the NFL Draft, which opens first round in Pittsburgh April 23rd. All right, well, we've covered players we have never talked about. Let's talk wide receivers. What's your latest number? Got to do it. What's your latest number of receivers going in round 1? I'm thinking it might be, give or take one, like 5.
So I'll say that's maybe not the best question to ask me, because I've taken this hiatus from mock drafts. If this was a year ago, I would certainly be able to answer that really well.
That's fair.
I think anywhere between 4 and 6. It wouldn't surprise me either way, which I guess is kind of, hedging on both sides, but that if we get to like pick 13, 14, 15 and we're like, oh, like a receiver hasn't gone yet, or like only one has gone, because I think for as much as it's a very flashy position, seemingly a lot of teams need them and want more of them, I think the general consensus from a few people that I've talked to in the scouting world are like, yeah, they're good. Like Mekhi Lemon, very good. He has a nice profile, very much like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like Carnell Tate, same thing, but only one major year of production at Ohio State and didn't test through the roof. Jordan Tyson, breakout year at age 18 at Arizona State. The hamstrings are a concern. Casey Concepcion, I love him. A lot of people do like him, but the drops are a concern. So everyone of the perceived top 3 or 4 are not necessarily perfect prospects or don't emphatically check all of the boxes. So I think those 4, and then maybe Omar Cooper could be that 5th player at the wide receiver spot, which has kind of become par for the course that we normally have between 4 and 6 receivers. Sometimes, like in the Keon Coleman year, what was it, 6 or 7 that could ultimately go in the first round?
Yeah, Coleman was wide receiver 8 at pick 33.
8
so
with
7 in the first round is correct.
Where are you on Tyson? I know we've talked about him before. He's one of the most highly rated, and kind of there's a lot of debate about him because of the injury thing. Like, where do you land on him? Like, if he let's say like there's enough concern about the injury stuff with him that he doesn't go early and it gets to be where you're 15, 20, like the Bills are within striking distance and he's still there. Now there'd be other receivers there, but like is there a moment where it becomes okay, cost benefit analysis, the ceiling is so high, if he does stay healthy, you should make a move, or is he like a no-fly zone entirely for you?
No, he is not a no-fly zone for me. He's not in the Keon Coleman range where he was in 2024. And I'll kind of set the scene for this answer with 2 things. Number 1, Jordan Tyson right now is my number 28 overall player. So I think he's right in that striking distance of the Bills. And my range comparisons for him go from Jacoby Myers to Keenan Allen. Like, he's that type of fluid, inside, outside, savvy route runner, but not going to give you much after the catch at all. Going to catch pretty much everything. Will make the difficult grabs. Will make the diving catches at his feet. Will not have a lot of drops, and is just not someone that you're going to push the ball vertically down the field with. So he's someone that if these hamstring injuries that he's had and the fact that he couldn't work out in the combine or the Arizona State Pro Day, if that's why he's either available at 26 or gets close enough to the Bills where they're like, man, this is a young prospect that was the number one guy at 18 years old at Arizona State. Even though I think he's technically my wide receiver 5, I would be totally fine with him because of the position and because what I think Bulldog and I have kind of agreed on, I think you too, Mike, the separation ability is so vital, I think, to this Bills wide receiver group, and he absolutely brings that. He has, I don't want to say Justin Jefferson's ability, but he has like that kind of style of Justin Jefferson where he's very flexible and can use some of that bendiness and explosion to get open at all 3 levels of the field.
Chris, what do you think the Seahawks should be hoping for at 32? Is that a team that, like a Super Bowl winner can do whatever it wants? Is there any bad idea for Seattle? I'm thinking about CEH. We talk about, the fantasy stuff on ADP chasing last night, and maybe that's a team that thinks it has the luxury, if you will, to do that, whether that's Jadarian Price or someone else, or maybe a receiver. I feel like the Seahawks, they just hit the jackpot on defense and in, offensive line too in last year's draft. At the same time, I kind of think that their skill position, sets are not perfect. They let Kenneth Walker leave, but also, they're really good. So what do you like for them?
I think edge rusher. I think losing Boye Mafe and the fact that they're looking at DeMarcus Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu as kind of their primary rush defensive ends that are both up there in age at this point. I know Leonard Williams is great on the interior as kind of that 3-4 defensive end. Byron Murphy's there, but even like Jaron Reed, who's up into his 30s at defensive tackle. I think up front for that team, it's kind of been going from Pete Carroll now to Mike McDonald. I think with the same GM, John Schneider, when they've been really good and getting to Super Bowls and winning Super Bowls, they've been really just super deep, like we saw in the Super Bowl, and ferocious along the defensive line. So I agree, the skill positions are not great outside of the reigning offensive player of the year in JSN. So if they went wide receiver, I wouldn't think that's crazy either. I'm not the biggest believer, though, that they should go running back just because of the obvious Ken Walker situation. I think they could draft one later, and that's also what's baked into that is I don't love this running back class outside of Jeremiah Love, which I think we talked about, and I think going edge rusher or wide receiver would make more sense for them too.
It will be interesting who they line up week 1, though, because Charbonnet's coming off a torn ACL. That happened maybe in the playoffs. So they signed Emmanuel Wilson from Green Bay. Is he week 1 starter or is a day 2 rookie their week 1 starter? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Did you mention Jeremiah Love when we were talking top 5? He's another
great. I did.
You did.
It seems like, that's almost the second most telegraphed pairing beyond Mendoza going to the Raiders, that the Tennessee Titans, just with a little bit of what they've built and Cam Ward coming into his second season, that they just have a glaring, I guess to some people have a glaring need at running back or having that feature back. And Jeremiah Love is, I think, up there in that rarefied air of the Bijan and the Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of he can be your home run hitter, you can throw him the football, and he can be a 1,200-yard running back that catches 40, 50 passes and be a 1,500-plus yards from scrimmage player on his rookie deal.
That's we were talking about him last night, too. Has any franchise ever needed a star at a skill position like the Titans,
Tennessee, yeah.
With Daboll there now?
Did we learn anything at Indiana's Pro Day today about Mendoza or anybody else who took part?
Cooper,
I guess.
D'Angelo Pons, that tiny corner that was just all over the football all season. He's 5'9", 165, plays a lot bigger and is incredibly twitchy. He ran 4.31 And I believe he ran somewhere in the low 4.3s at the combine too, which is pretty unusual for a guy to have. Or no, he didn't run at the combine. He had a 43.5-inch vertical at the combine. So he showed like, wow, super explosive. Did not run there, then ran 4.31 today, and is someone that, to me, I mean, we were just talking Seahawks and we're talking Bills. Like, he is right in there between Devin Witherspoon and Antoine Winfield Sr. Like, he is that type of small, super feisty, pesky player. I didn't see what the wide receivers, if Cooper or Surratt ran. I think it was just going on this afternoon. And apparently Mendoza threw the ball on air really well, which should come as no surprise.
Right. Yeah, I saw like 63 for 66 with 3 drops or something is what I saw. So
Tecmo.
Yeah, I'm asking you what happened, but I knew that stat because I did see that.
That takes me back to like Madden on easy.
Right.
Just going to throw every play, see if I can get to 100. All right, Chris, thanks for your time as always. How's the site going?
It's going really well. I'm seeing a little uptick in traffic, obviously, which is just, I think, aligning with it being draft season. And if you go to the site now, I have a draft day mode preview, which is like the homepage where I will have from the 23rd through the 25th, all 3 days of the draft, like a draft tracker, best available, team hubs where you can like click on the Bills picks and see all their selections to get scouting reports there. Biggest reaches will be outlined, biggest steals. So I'm trying to show, just to kind of celebrate the start of draft month, a look at what draft day mode will look like at the end of April.
Yeah, that's cool. I came across that earlier this morning and tweeted it out to promote that you were going to be on with us. So maybe I'll give it a bump now too, because I think that's a really cool thing to for any fans to just follow along with. If they're a fan of your work, that's a really cool thing to do on draft night, I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chris. Talk to you next week.